Welcome back to Business Office Specialist. In today's video, we'll be looking at some advanced features that can help us create a professional-looking Google slide presentation. To help us with this, we're going to be using a pre-built slide deck for a presentation on the top 5 colleges. Now, as you look at this presentation, you can see that we are still using the Simple Light theme. And we'll want to change that to make it look more professional. In a previous video, we learned how to change the look of our slides using background images. But that had to be done on every single slide. Instead, what would be nice is if we could change the whole theme so that not only the slides that are currently here, but any future slides we add will have all the changes that we create. And we can do that using a tool called the Slide Master. The Slide Master can be found in the Slide menu at the top, and then you select Edit Master. When you do this, it opens up a darker looking screen that shows you all of the different layouts that are possible, and you can edit each layout individually, or you can edit the entire slide deck at once. We're going to start by editing some features in the entire slide deck. So we're going to select from the thumbnail images off to the left side, the master slide. The master slide controls every single slide and layout in the entire presentation. So any changes we make here will be made on every single slide. The first thing we can do is change the background. We've done that before in a previous video. We're going to go to the background icon, and let's change the color. But this time, instead of using a solid color like we did last time, we're going to choose a gradient color. A gradient color fades from one location on the screen to another location on the screen. We're going to create one to begin with that fades from the top into the bottom of the screen. So I'm going to choose the dark gray 3 linear gradient. A linear gradient fades in a straight line. And then I click Done, and you can see how that fades from a lighter color at the top to a darker color towards the bottom. Now, that makes our gray text almost illegible because it's the same color as part of our gradient. So the next thing we're going to do is click on the title text box and change the font color to be white. And then I'll click on the lower box, Control A to select all, change the color on all text at once. And you can see as I do that, the text on all of my layouts on the left-hand side automatically change. So this one change can affect the entire slide deck at once. Now, let's say that instead of changing the entire slide deck, we only wanted to change one of the layout styles. Let's pick the first layout style, which is the title layout. With the title layout, we have a gradient just like everything else that goes from the top to the bottom. But the title doesn't have a lot of content in it. It simply is going to have some text right in the center of the screen. So I'd like to bring my viewer's focus to the center of the screen. And I can do that by changing the radiance so that instead of going from top to bottom, it goes from the center out. So let's make a small change to our background color for just this title slide. And instead of doing a linear gradient, we are going to do a radial gradient. And now you can see that the radial gradient begins in the center of my slide and works its way out. And that's going to draw my viewer's focus into the center of the slide where my title is. Now the last thing that I want to look at are the fonts. Right now we're using just a very simple font. I would like to change the titles to have a font that really stands out. Now I could choose from the fonts that are available by default, and there's a lot of really good ones in here that we could use, but let's say that you wanted to do something a little bit different. I can come to More Fonts and scroll through all of the different fonts that are available. I want to choose the Ubuntu font. So when I click that, it will have a little blue check mark next to it saying that that's been added into my fonts, and that will become available not only in this slide, but in all of my Google Suite as one of the fonts that will show up on my list. So I'm going to add Ubuntu onto my list and click OK. And then go into my list if it didn't select it already, and select Ubuntu as my font style for my titles. And you can see that that now becomes the default style for every title on every slide. And then for the body text, we'll just leave that as an Arial for right now. Now that I've made the changes in my master slide deck, to close the master slide deck, you can go to the X in the upper right corner and close out your master slide deck, and it will return you back to your regular slides and allow you to edit your presentation. So now we've looked at two different ways to change the style of your presentation. We've looked at using a default theme from Google Slides. We've also looked at creating your own theme using the master slide deck. You can also change the themes slide by slide using what's called the Explore tool. So let's take a look at that. Let's click on the second slide in our presentation, and down in the lower right corner, there's an option to Explore. If you click on that, it will open up a panel with themes specific just for that layout style. So here we can see several different options that are available specifically to the layout style of a title and 2 columns with an image in it. And then if you wanted to test any of these, you could simply click on them and it would update just that one slide with this new theme. So if you're not finding what you want out of the default themes or customizing using the master slide deck, maybe you just want something that is unique for that in particular slide, you can use the Explore button to get a new theme for one particular slide. So what I'd like you to do is scroll through the Explore themes for slide 2 and select a theme that you like that you can add to this presentation. It can be any one that's there. It doesn't have to be the one from this example. I'm going to choose this one because we already have a dark theme going and I kind of like sticking to that dark theme. But any of these would work just fine. Now, I wanted to point out the Explore does have themes specific to each layout style. So as you change layout styles, the themes will also change. For example, if I go down to slide 7, we had a layout that was a section header instead of the title with 2 columns. And here you see a very different set of layout themes for that layout. I would like you to scroll through these, choose one that you feel fits best, and select that one. I'm going to choose this gray background for mine, but you can choose any one that you want. So that's the Explore. Using a combination of the default themes, the Explore themes, and the master slide deck, you can create a really interesting looking presentation that's unique, that stands out, and that grabs the attention of your audience. Now, as we look at our presentation so far, we do have some bulleted text on here. And in our previous presentation, we looked at how to add animations so that each of those comes in one at a time. And if you wanted to talk about each individual item here one at a time, you could totally do that. But in this presentation, that doesn't really fit very well because I'm not here to talk about when Stanford opened and what its location was and what the student population was. I'm just talking about the university as a whole, and these are some interesting facts that are on the screen while I'm talking about them. So I could easily just leave those up there if I wanted to. But there is another kind of animation that is very useful for all of our presentations, and that's called a transition. So an animation in presentation software is how objects enter, exit, or move around on a screen. A transition is the animation that moves from one slide to the next slide. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to click on my first slide, and up at the top, I am going to click Transition from the ribbon. Now, there is a drop-down box to allow us to pick what kind of transition we want. We could do a dissolve, fade, slide, flip, or cube, or gallery. I'm going to choose the cube option. Now, if you want to adjust how fast slides move, you can click this little slider bar and adjust it here. I don't usually change these. Most of the time the default speed is just fine, but just to practice, let's go ahead and change this to be 1.5 seconds instead of the default. Now, once we've set one we like, we could go in and change each slide individually and create a different transition for each slide. But my experience has been that that makes a presentation very busy and can become distracting to your audience as they're watching each different slide animation come in. So usually it's recommended to pick one, maybe two, and stick with those throughout the presentation. There's an easy tool to help us with that. Once we've chosen an animation that we like for our presentation, we can simply click Apply to All Slides, and that same cube at 1.5 seconds will spread throughout all of the presentations. Now, when you're looking at a specific slide, the transition isn't the animation that moves from that to the next slide, it's the animation that transitions from the previous slide into this one. So your first slide doesn't have a previous slide it's going into. So this means that if I were to play this, your presentation would start black and then just have this slide kind of ooze into existence. I don't really like doing it that way. Most of the time, in my opinion, a starting slide should not have an animation, a transition going into it. So I'm going to go back now that I've set it for all the slides and turn off the slide transition just for that first slide. And you can see the little circles icon that indicates a transition have disappeared. So all of the other slides should have a transition. It allows us to smoothly move from one slide into the next, but the first slide, typically speaking, will not have a transition. So now that we have finished the slide portion of our presentation, we're ready to begin preparing for the actual presenting of this presentation. And a great way to do that is to use what's known as speaker's notes. So speaker notes are right at the bottom of your presentation, and you may not be able to see them right now. If you don't see them, you can go up to the View menu at the top and choose Show Speaker Notes. And then you'll get this box down at the bottom that you can adjust if you want to, where you can type in your speaker's notes. So for example, if this were my presentation, I would write in here what it is I'm planning to say. Now, maybe I wouldn't write in word for word, maybe it's just a few bullet points or some ideas, but whatever's going to help me while I'm presenting. There is a way, and we'll look at it in a second, where you can view these without your audience viewing them so that you can give your presentation. And this allows you to have your notes saved right into the presentation so there's no chance that you'll forget your note cards or that it will get lost. So I'm going to open my presentation. Let's say that I wanted to say, in this presentation, I will be discussing the top 5 colleges in the United States. According to Forbes magazine. So that's how I'm going to open my presentation. And then I would proceed to go through the rest of my slides and add the speaker's notes for those as well. I'm going to add those in really quick, and if you are viewing this as part of my Canvas course, the individual speaker's notes for each slide will be in Canvas in the instructions, so go ahead and pause the video, jump over there, and add those into each slide, and then we'll continue. All right, so now that our speaker's notes are in the presentation, we are ready to present. To present a presentation, if you go up to the very top, there is a Present button. If you press the Present button, it will automatically present wherever you are in the presentation. So if I were on slide 3 and I click Present, it will begin on slide 3. If I want to begin at the very beginning, I can click the drop-down arrow to the right of the Present button and say Present from Beginning. I can also set it up to present with a presenter view. Let me click on Presenter View and open that up for you. And I am not at the beginning, so I'm going to back up so that I am. So, in the presenter view, there's a few handy tools that you have, and you see that this opens up as a pop-up window so that if you are showing 2 different screens, one for the audience, one for you, you can move this pop-up window over to wherever your screen is and view this while everyone else is viewing something different. Up at the top, there's a timer so that you can know how long you've been speaking. And it will also show you the slide that is currently being shown to the audience. And down below it will show you your next slide, and as you go through your previous slide so that you know where you're at and what's coming up so you can prepare for it. And then you have your speaker's notes off to the right-hand side, which is why we want to have those in there. Now, there's also another cool feature in the presenter view called Audience Tools. Audience Tools are a way to interact with your audience. So let's say we get to the end of our presentation to that question and answer screen. and I want to see what questions my audience has. If I click on the audience tools up at the top and click Start New, it will open a link to basically a chat box, similar to what you could expect from like a Zoom meeting or other online presentation, where participants have the ability to chat in comments, questions, or ideas during the presentation. Only this one is live instead of online. So if I go back to my presentation, this is what your audience would be seeing. And up at the top, there's a link for them to type in. So I'm going to click on that link, and it will bring them to a website that looks like this. It will tell them what presentation they're viewing, and then they can ask a question if they want to. So let's ask the question, what school would be best for marketing? Maybe I want to study marketing and I want to know which of these schools might be best for me. I can submit that, and when I do, all of the other participants who have this screen open will be able to see my question. If they like my question and would like it to surface to the top where the presenter is going to see it, they can click on Upvote. If they don't like it, they can click on Downvote. And then let's go back to presenter view. And as the presenter, as soon as these questions come in, on my audience tools, I can view each of the questions and who it is that asked that question. Then if I find one that's particularly interesting to my audience, I can click Present at the bottom of that question, and that question becomes my slide, and everyone else can view it. So maybe as I'm answering questions, instead of me repeating verbally the questions that people are asking, I can click the Present for that question, show it on the screen, and then proceed to answer the question. Or maybe we can have a group discussion about whatever it is that was up there. When I'm finished, if I want to, I can simply turn off the link for the audience to interact with questions. And on theirs, it will simply tell them that that session is closed. I'll still be able to see the questions and respond to them or show them on the screen. When I'm finished showing them on my screen, I can click Hide and go back to my normal presentation. So in today's presentation, we looked at several different tools that can really help you take your simple Google slide presentation to the next level. We learned how to use the master slide deck and the Explore layout themes to modify and customize the layout and look of your presentation. We also learned how to use gradient background colors instead of just solid colors. We also looked at how to apply transitions and using speaker's notes in the presenter view, as well as using the audience question and answer features. To learn more tools and features in the Google Suite family of apps, check out more of my videos on YouTube or visit ToriNorman.com.